Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for another Young Professionals Network program, a conversation with Enuma CEO Sooinn Lee. I'm Jo, Senior Director of Arts and Culture here at the Korea Society. Vivian Lee, who was scheduled to be our moderator tonight, sends her regrets as due to unforeseen circumstances, she's unable to join us. Since 2011, the Korea Society's Young Professionals Network series has provided young adults an interactive platform to connect with other professionals and develop their careers by hearing from industry experts while growing their interests in Korea and US Korea relations. Over the past decade, the series has invited speakers from diverse professional backgrounds to share their careers and life experiences. And tonight, we are excited to present another installment of the YPN series, which is made possible by the continued support of Yang Won-sun Foundation. Anyone interested in supporting the Korea Society, please consider joining us as a member. For further information, please refer to the booklet on your chairs or feel free to ask questions to Jamie Ju, our Development Program Associate, who's sitting right back there. And now I would like to introduce tonight's guest speaker, Sooinn Lee. Sooinn Lee is the co-founder and CEO of the educational technology company Enuma. After graduating from Seoul National University with a degree in fine arts, she worked at the Korean company NCSoft as a game designer and built a successful career as an illustrator, columnist, and webtoon creator, among many other things. In 2012, she co-founded Enuma, which has developed multiple award-winning digital learning platforms for youth and children, including those from disenfranchised backgrounds. Sooinn led her team to develop Todo, a popular series of education apps that has been downloaded more than 10 million times, and KitKit School, which was announced as a co-winner of the Global Learning X Prize competition in 2019. Sooinn was named as an Ashoka Fellow in 2017 and a Schwab Foundation Social Entrepreneur of the Year in 2020. Currently, Enuma has 3 different offices located in Berkeley, United States, Seoul, Korea, and Beijing, China. So please join me in welcoming Sooinn Lee. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
It's a great pleasure and honor to sit here together with you in front of all those amazing guests.
So you've had such a diverse career experience before you found your own company. It includes being a game designer as well as a well-known blogger, to name just a few. Would you briefly tell us a little bit about beginning of your career?
So it was 1999, I started to work in the game industry. I really enjoyed that experience. Worked as a game designer and corporation strategist for 10 years. Because I really loved my job and enjoyed the life, I started to write a blog about life inside of the game industry, translated some of textbooks about game design, writing a book about that, write a column about that. So it's all just associated with how I love games and game industry. Before I just meet the critical moment of my life and change my interest from game to education.
And what was that critical moment?
So that is a part of my story. So in 2008, I came to the United States following my husband who just started his PhD at UC Berkeley. And my son was born in San Francisco with many medical complexity, and doctors warn about the future potential special needs for his future. So that's a moment that I realized that I couldn't come back to my lovely career anymore. And there is some skill I can use for my own child. And I may be helpful for a child like him and other children who just come to this new world with the era of iPad and iPhone.
So was that basically was that why you decide to launch your own company?
It actually took about 3 to 4 years before I launching the company. But it was 2008, and we all had iPhone in our hand, and there was a rumor about bigger iPhone to the market. And as a game designer, as a corporation strategist, I saw very interesting opportunity from that basic touching interaction between human to the touchscreen devices. And I dreamed about education tool that is especially helpful for children with special needs. So in early days of my new career, I got a sponsorship from game company and research about human interaction and making a game for young children with special needs. In 2012, that project has been closed, and I got a very interesting contact from one Silicon Valley investor who saw my previous work. He was computer interaction PhD himself, and thought there is some very valuable thing I can contribute to the game industry. So not game industry, the education industry. So he encouraged me to start the company. It took 9 months to get his suggestion about supporting my new career to I finally decide to start my own company. And that's how Enuma started.
So, what was your biggest motivation? Because obviously, you had this wonderful career, you also had your own children, a lot of challenges and things that you had to deal with. Starting your own company seems like another big challenge that's added to your plate. So, why did you decide to start your own company?
That's a good question. We are actually off the track from our prepared questions. So I knew what I could make, and I really wanted to create the education tool that is fun and engaging for children who couldn't feel any motivation or fun from regular studying, regular learning. I had very great idea, and I think that it must be very important for struggling learners and children with special needs. But there is no such a company who want to create such a thing. So if I want to make such a thing, there is only one way: building my own team and company. But and also as a game designer, uh, from my career, I know how to build a product, but making a company and hire the team member myself and growing with all those venture capitals and managing the team and push product to the market was totally different skill set. And when I came to the United States, I learned English in middle school and high school. I believe that many of you know what is the level of English conversation those people who didn't prepare separately from their school has. I could read, I could listen a bit, but I couldn't barely speak. So all those challenges were stacked up. I struggled a lot in early days of my entrepreneur journey. I'm still struggling a lot. Uh, but because I had such a clear mission, and I was super fortunate meeting very confident investor in my side, and I co-created a company with my husband. Uh, I just made it for last 10 years and still survived. I'm really glad for that.
That's great. So, what was the language barrier? You would you say that was your biggest challenge when starting your company, or what were other challenges for you?
Let's see. Um, English is the biggest barrier. Uh, so it prevent it. It just creates so many different difficulties. Being female was not very helpful. At that time in Silicon Valley, only 7% of female founder ever received the funding from the regular institutional VCs. The number has not been changed dramatically since then. But in 2012, it was extremely difficult. Being immigrant is fine, but being immigrant couldn't speak English well and don't have any network in the United States was also very challenging. I didn't have any institutional background or company background that any VCs or team member could understand. I graduated good school from Korea, and NCSoft was a very popular company. But who knows in Silicon Valley?
So how do you overcome all that?
Good question. So because I started this work without much preparation, I didn't know what I am doing. That was very helpful. If you research about all those statistics that how small number of female founder could ever successfully receive funding, you may totally overwhelmed by the sense that being minority and being have a smaller chances. But I didn't know that. So I was so naive. So if somebody just introduce a new investor or a new team member or a new advisor, I just went there and just tried my best to explain all those concepts with my English and failed. I believe that I'm one of the founder who pitched the most because I failed a lot until I get one success and one funding. So definitely there were very many hard moments and challenging moments, but at least there is one very important skill set I have with my husband. We were the best game developers from Korea, and the product we could create was amazing. So soon I just gave up and just say, okay, let's start with presenting my software because my software is far better than my English skill. And it really worked. So I think that our product, and that's the only reason why our early investors invest in us, because they believe in our power to create something helpful, something useful to the world. And in Silicon Valley, unlike any places in the world, they know sometimes a founder who couldn't speak English at all can create some amazing things. And there was some initial consensus that give the opportunity for those founders if they have skills. So soon after we start to have demo in our hands, we could get award, even though my pitching was so bad on that day. I got a Best Design Award from Lunch Education and Kids Conference, and our demo was so amazing. Apple loved the product. They featured our program on the first page of education product around the world, and that product just was the product led us to the success, even though weak skill as a founder continuously drag down the opportunity of our team.
I'm sure that was not the case. But let's talk about the product then a little bit. So for those people who may not be very familiar with Enuma, can you briefly tell us about what your company does and what are your leading products?
I see. So Enuma is an education company which create the best early learning software for children, especially those who are struggling in learning. Our product originally designed to teach basic kindergarten to second grade skills to children who doesn't have good early foundations when they come to the school system. But because of our design and our technology, it actually turned out be very helpful to teach young learners access to early elementary skills. So in Asia, like Korea, Japan, and China, it's very popular among parents who want to teach their children as early as possible at the age 4 or 5. So we are number one product in Korea and Japan. But we continuously push our product to the B2G market. We are creating a software to support vulnerable population, immigrant population in wealthy countries like Korea or United States. But also we deliver this type of software to developing countries to support large size of basic learning failure in developing countries. So our Todo Math, Todo English, and Todo Korean, they are downloaded more than 11 million times so far. Is generating healthy revenue from regular parents market. We believe that there are also struggle in this private market because some parents actually push those concepts too early to children. So their brain are not ready to learn basic addition and subtraction or basic concept of English grammar. So we are very helpful for those children to learn those concepts by playing and very easy and intuitive way. But at the same time, the 70% of children in developing countries fail to meet a basic proficiency in literacy and math. So means that even though they are third grade or fourth grade, many of them couldn't read 2 sentences or 3 sentences, or couldn't do 2-digit addition and subtraction. It's because they didn't have good educational foundation before they come to the school, and 1 year is too short for them to finish their first grade successfully. And they failed to meet the first grade. At the end of first grade, there is no chance they will learn second grade successfully and go to the third grade and fourth grade following that. So we try to create a self-learning software for children to practice at their own speed. When there is a teacher and good school system, it will be individualized learning tool they can just practice to supplement to what they are learning from the school. But there are many children who doesn't have teacher, who doesn't have classroom, or the classroom that is so, how can I describe
Crowded?
Crowded or malfunctioning without effective teacher. So don't have any chance to be successful in that school system. So we just try to provide highest quality of individualized learning that is universal and accessible for all children around the world.
So it's a tech company, but it seems like you have a mission, so to speak, and you are trying to educate children and help them to be educated. So what do you think, when you started the company, what would you say was sort of the core value of the company? I mean, I'm sure you want it to be successful. I'm sure you wanted all the fundings and all that comes with the business. But what would you say is the core value of your company?
We described us as a mission-driven company. The first mission statement of our company was, we empower children with special needs to be independent learners. We sharply focus on children with special needs. Later, my son started his kindergarten, and I saw it's not amazing, very shocking scene that there are a small group of children who are from poor neighborhood sorting number card to alphabet cards because they didn't know which is number and which is alphabet. It is Berkeley. I couldn't believe my eyes. And those children, if you judge them, that's their smartness with their talking, they are super smart children who just speak fluently from the beginning of the classroom until the end of the classroom. So I asked teacher, what is happening? And teacher said that those are the children from poor neighborhood which didn't see the letters until they come to the school system. And there are children who are from immigrant families. Some of my friends in United States, So try to keep children Korean as long as possible because they know once children get to the school system, they will catch up English and never will like to speak in Korean with their parents. So parents try to keep them in Korean environment as long as possible. But in school's point of view, there is a bunch of children who come to school without knowing English at all. How to deal with that? So after seeing all those scenes and the struggle of immigrant children or children from poor background, we changed our mission statement in this way. We empower all struggling learners, including those with special needs, to be independent learners. So, but in 2014, we will discuss about Global Learning X Prize competition later. Global Learning X Prize competition announced to find an independent learning tool to support children in developing countries. That is the first time I heard that the number of 250 million children who couldn't access to the education system. And there are more number of children who is sitting on so crowded classroom or teacher who can't read herself, so doesn't have any chance to be successful in learning, even though they are sitting in the classroom for 6 years or 8 years. So right now we just say, okay, we will empower all children in the world to be independent learners. But we know there are children who are privileged, who have a family who can read or write. For those children, I don't have any problem in traditional learning method. I'm a product of traditional education system, and I'm so happy about that. But the world needs to know the size of failure the current education system is creating. And I believe that the digital and this type of independent learning technology can be super helpful to change what is failing in current education system around the world.
So, co-founding this fabulous company and doing all you can do to make your mission come true. What do you see yourself? What do you think is your role in this company? Not just that you're the founder, but you're the CEO, you're the leader of this company. So, how do you see yourself? How do you inspire your people to do what they should be doing?
I came to the East Coast to attend the leadership program because there is still a long way to go as an effective leader of this amazing team. I learned, yeah, I was so bad as a CEO in early days because I was so obsessed on my mission and my skills and didn't give a room to the whole team to work together. So in the first leadership training I attended, that was amazing, and he just taught to those failing CEOs say, it's not because you are a failure. It's because your skill as a leader is so low. You are leader level 1, and there is a room to grow. And the first thing you should know is what leader should do. And he just said that there are 3 major roles as a leader. One is build the mission and find people who believe in that mission. And second, let your people work what they like to do and provide the resources they need. Right? And 3, be the most confident person in the room. The second part is challenging, but third part is super hard. Because I'm also a human being, I'm sometimes deal with my own doubts and my own weaknesses and so on. But that's what I just try to do. First, hold a mission as strong as possible. There are some moment that people challenge to the mission, like, hey, don't try to catch 2 rabbits in one hand. It's not possible. So go and get your money and do good after you have enough amount of money as a part of charity. I heard that type of advices a lot. Or how about um, hide your mission as a kind of secret sauce, but don't share it so openly because parents will not like to purchase your program because you mentioned special needs. There are those type of things. Um, and sometimes, because all of other company are doing the bad work without much thought, sometimes our product is too expensive to create to support all those children who are likely to fail and to provide additional support for their interaction. So there is a moment that our mission seems like an obstacle to financial success. So holding the mission is super important, and I try to be really truthful about what we are doing in here, why we are doing in here. And the finding resources is what usually CEOs should do. Go out and get the funding and find the right people and create the team and make a meaningful milestone and make a good marketing strategy. That is every day all CEOs do. I just try my best with all those teams' help. And yeah, to be being a most confident people person in the room, I I try it every day. One day I am successful, and another day I'm failing. But I just try to uh, enhance my skill, improve my skill every day.
And then you're the co-founder of Enuma, and your business partner happens to be your husband. So, what is it like to manage your business with a family member? Is there pros or cons of doing it with your husband?
Um, as an immigrant founder who doesn't have family who will support, there is no mom to call when I have big meeting. Being a husband and wife team was the only way we could come here that far. It also created some challenging moments, but essentially, especially in the situation that being an immigrant founder um, with two children, there was no other way. So I'm utterly grateful about starting this company together without knowing uh, why we have to do that or what will it look like. Uh, there are definitely challenging moments as a husband and wife or between CTO to CEO. But I think that just try to nurture the relationship and be really aware of what we are doing in here and to try to support each other enough was very, very important. And I may not know how I did until I ask my husband. And whenever I ask my husband, everything is good. You're doing fine. I'm fine. But I'm here in the New York at 6:30. It's 3:30 in Berkeley. Means that my husband just picked up two children from two different schools and preparing them to the swimming lesson of this evening alone. So I am feeling, sometimes I'm feeling a bit uncomfortable to travel or just being here and eat well and meet all those amazing people myself. Also, I always encourage our CTO to attend the conferences, have business trip. I'm really supportive for his business trip, and for being him has equal chances as much as me.
And I also heard that even before the COVID pandemic, your company offered flexible working hours, especially if they are parents. So this seemed like one of the decisions you made to implement. So, what kind of working environment or culture do you wish to create for your workers,
Hmm.
for your team?
I don't have much wishes, but when I first started the company, when one of the famous investors just approached me and suggested me to create a company, I told him, without knowing the meaning that deep, I don't like to create my own company. But if I did, I want to build a very special one. First, I don't want to say no to anybody um, who tried to convince me to abandon my mission. We will never forget why we create the company and why we are together. And second, this company will be very special because our early members are parents who can't work from 9 to 5 in workspace. Some of our early members already left their career to take care of their child with special needs, or there is other reason they can't keep their career anymore, whether they are fathers or mothers. So we will meet only once or twice in the office. We will have a children's room for us to bring our children, and we will work while our children are at school or while our spouse are at home or while our children are in bed. He said, "Oh, yep, I'm fine. It's a fantastic idea. Okay, so let's go on." And later, I just realized that how important it was because in early days, I don't have a network in the United States. So we didn't have any tools or any attractive point, any strength to hire qualified marketer, qualified programmer or designer. I could find them in the group of parents who quit their career and struggling to enter the job market again. Some of us started with 4 hours per day, so we had so many part-times. And because we couldn't pay the full time, it actually helped us a lot. In tech industry, I believe that you know that half-time professional is far, far more productive than full-time junior. I didn't aware of that, but that was the only option I could have. But eventually, we ended up finding amazing people who had a brilliant career a long time ago and really liked the work, but like to manage their time very wisely. And it helped a lot in the early days of our company. And still, it's still very helpful having that flexible workspace policy. When pandemic broke, we announced the full remote on that day for Korea and the United States. And for 2 years, our team was so productive. We didn't lose any moment for being fully remote. Most of tech companies struggled a lot, but in our cases, it was not. So I hope that we continuously build a culture to respect each other and doesn't try to manage each other at all, but everybody just brought their full skills to the table with all those real truthful devotion and real passion for the mission. We are 120, and I don't know how far we can go with this loose policy. But so far, I'm really glad that we are such a team.
That's fascinating. So now you have offices in Korea, in Berkeley, and China as
Yeah,
well.
and Indonesia and
And-
Japan.
So, which so it sort of covers all these different cultural backgrounds, languages, all these probably work habits, all these different things. I was just wondering, since you started your career in Korea working for a very specific Korean company that is a game company, and was there anything that you learned from the Korean company that inspired you to do certain things for your company, or made you avoid doing?
I don't know, because game companies had very different culture from regular Korean conglomerates. So it is very flexible and people have real passion. They are all very young. So I got all the benefit of being and loving that culture and environment. Even though we have 5 offices around the world, majority of us are Korean, right? And Korean has very strong two characteristics. They are very strong in tech, and they are very strong in education. So, for example, if our education designer failed to deliver question sets on time, our programmers just create the question sets themselves. They know what it looks like second grade math questions, what it looks like third grade grammar questions. It's very interesting, right? Sometimes if we try to work with specific other culture outside of Korea, there are professionals who learned for a long time how to build those type of questions and how to teach young children how to read or write. But in Korea, because we all did that for a long time, right? And so many people actually had some of second job as a part-time tutor when they are in university. It's really deeply embedded in our life. So it actually gave us huge benefit about that. Um, there are several weaknesses of not being very diverse. So one day, one of our investor just just wanted to check the diversity level of each company. In our cases, we score very low for hiring white male and African Americans because it's all Asian. Most of us are Asian. It's not always Korean, but mostly Asian. So the lack of diversity actually always creates the pitfalls. So when we are creating a software for US schools, we are working with some of African American educators to just screen if our software that is mostly designed for African countries or children in Asia be appropriate in classroom in the United States. So yeah, but I think that we actually get more benefit of hiring many bilinguals and Korean engineers and game creators for our team so far.
Great. So I'm going to give our audience a chance to ask you a question as well. But before we go to the audience, I do have this. Speaking of all the Koreans who are so used to being educated ever since they are little, there's always that also that strict standard and the sayings the Korean moms always telling their kids to stop playing games and study. So how do you come up with this sort of merging that very opposing ideas of studying versus playing games?
Good question. So I will just separate the question into two. For parents who see the media as a interference of their children's study, I think that they must be right. When I was young, my mom said, no TV. Yeah. But these children are living in the world of YouTube. Right? So I think that try to get the benefit from what there is already, what their children already in their hands will be more wise rather than just creating continuous struggle. In 2012, the, the Association of Early Childhood so the Association of Early Childhood Education, I couldn't remember the full name of that association, announced a very interesting statement about digital media and our children. They said that digital media is here and they will not go away. So the only way we navigate the future is to learn from digital media and use it the wisest as possible to support our children with this. I think there is a very huge wisdom inside of that, from that statement. And many parents during the pandemic already found that some of the not games but digital tools and education tools are actually supportive for their children. Playing game is different story. I came from game industry. I have a brother who obsessed in game when he was in school, high school. We were all successful anyway at the end of the day, but my mom had very hard time for that. Current, it's not game. It's just a nature of internet contents nowadays. It's very, very addictive. And sometimes it can change people's brain structure. Facebook, Instagram, we all know it's very harmful. And right now, at this moment, nobody can say game is more harmful than Instagram for some teenage girls, right? So some of old age people like me still have some of idea that game is essential of all the negative impact of digital media. But right now, in truth, it was not. So for parents, knowing what is out there and being really smart about that decision is very, very important. But just focusing on game, whether it is game or not, is not healthy and not very smart.
We understand. Shall we go to if anybody has questions, you can raise your hand and then somebody will bring the mic to you.
Hello, thank you for your talk tonight. I have a question about some of the decisions you made as a startup CEO. So I'm sure that you made a lot of decisions along the way when you first started your company, and among the decisions you had to make, like two things. What was the one decision that you made where you thought was very important at the time you made the decision, but later on you realized that it really didn't matter? And two, what was the decision when you made that decision, you felt it was like a small, minor thing, but in the end it snowballed into something that actually made a difference?
That's very interesting and good question. In the early days of our company, I made a very dumb mindset that I designed it for children who are struggling in learning. So, but in reality, young children's parents really love and purchase it. I actually fight with our customer. I just hated that idea of giving our product to 2 years old or 3 years old. When a VC just called me that, hey, my 2 years old learned how to add and subtract because of your tool, I literally say, hey, possibly it may be harmful, and there is no scientific evidence that early math exposure will lead them into future smart. So stop it. In the early days, somebody just say, yeah, nowadays children really like gamification, so let's add more gamification in our game. I just say, yeah, but it's designed for children with special needs. And some of them doesn't understand this sophisticated idea of motivation, intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. So let's drop that idea. Even though we know that it will attract many number of smart learners to be more engaged to the program. I just literally sabotaged creating money from our software in some of early days of our company. That was very. If I have any regret, fortunately we survived, right? But if there is one very dumb thing I could fail our company, that may be that we didn't like our customer. We just tried to fight against the market and actively not selling the software to the customer who like our software. Yeah. So that's what is the decision. It's not decision, but mindset I had in early days that is eventually harmful. And the small thing is registering for the X Prize. X Prize was 5 years of competition. It announced in 2014. So for last 30 years, United Nations people try to deliver technology to developing countries to enhance their education system, but never saw any evidence those type of technology actually move the needle a bit. So it was always continuously failed in the developing countries. In before 2012, let's see, there was a project called One Laptop per Child project. Some really smart people in MIT thought if we create $100 laptops in developing countries and give it to children, they may learn all those skills with these tablets, and they will catch up the skill sets of developed countries. They released about 17 million tablets in developing countries and failed. There was no evidence that children ever learn anything from that expensive project. So some people just start to think what was the problem of the previous approach. And finally, in 2013, they realized that it may be software, not the hardware. They should ask to any people in the game industry 5 years earlier. So because they didn't know how to make such a software impactfully, they got a $15 million donation from Elon Musk and opened a 5 years of a competition. And the rule was like that. We will give your software to out-of-school children in rural Tanzania without any literate adult in the village. And if your software really prove it creates some of the learning gain for those children, we will give this $15 to this successful product. In 2014, I learned about this competition and didn't care about that much. In 2015, I realized that the deadline was extended until 2 weeks later. And the registration fee was just $500. I knew we actually are one of the few company that can prove that is possible with the software, but there was some of very complicated rules, and it looks like it is designed for NGO and the new come up kind of NGO people. So we were not sure will we actually work for the competition or not. But because it's $500, and I really like some of the idea to prove it in the most extreme situation in the world, we just spend 2 hours and register for the competition and put that $500 with company card, and forgot about that for short term. And then it took about several months or a year for us to be really serious about the competition. There was much challenges around that, but however, we successfully became finalists, received $1 million, and then we received $4 million impact investment to win the competition and demonstrate the highest learning gain and the highest engagement among all, became co-winner and received $5 million prize, the split of $10 million final prize from Elon Musk. It actually changed the trajectory of our company dramatically. So kind of, okay, let's give it a try. We don't know, but we don't need to decide today. If it is a small investment, let's do it today, because we will have a time to decide later. Type of mindset was actually very, very helpful.
I have a question about your start of your project. Is a learning tool for children with learning disability, and how it's evolved to serve the broader
population of children around that age.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to ask you about how you are creating sort of one stop, or if you're not, if you are, making two different versions, and if to serve the broader market, if there's any stigma, and I'm just guessing if there's if you're serving your product to regular general education children, if there's any stigma that your software serves, children with learning disability, or I would think that there's some differences in how they learn, and how do you differentiate that when creating your software?
That's very, very important question. Thank you very much for the question. In the early days of my work, I realized something very interesting thing is from other software tools out there. First grade software teach first grade. Kindergarten software teach kindergarten. But many of those children doesn't have basic kindergarten skills when they open the kindergarten software. So many people believe that first graders actually has all the skills that is enough to start first grade, but some of them miss some of the critical cognitive skills that should be learned at age 3 or 4 or 5. So we are not making our software very differently, but when we are making first grade software, everything starts from 3 years old skill, 4 years, 5 years, and 6 years of skill until they finally come to the first grade skills. That make a huge difference because in reality, 40% of children in the United States come to kindergarten 1 to 3 years behind than their peers. And if these children doesn't discriminate, doesn't sort number to alphabet, most of kindergarten tool is not relevant for those children. So we actually have we give the opportunity for those children distinguish from circle to square, and find all those different small differences in the picture to distinguish D to B, or let's see, there are many similar or Q to O, because their brain should process all those small subtle differences of alphabet letters in very short amount of time. It requires practices in early days. And some children who doesn't have enough book at home actually fail from that stage already. I learned it from special education. So in early days, we create a special education tool that just have all those 3 years old skills and 4 years old skills to teach kindergarten and first grade. And people always say, but it doesn't look like special education tool. So I asked, what the special education tool should look like? What you like to give to children with special needs? I want to give the best software in the market, the most brilliant, the bright and very fun program to my own child. And when people just say, but it looks like for smart child. So there is a stigma about children with special needs, but there is a prejudice because we always so get used to give the best thing to the smart child who actually doesn't need it, and give all the derivatives or used thing or old, outdated thing for children who need that the most. So when we make the most brilliant, the most beautiful thing in the market, and when Apple featured it in their front page, they never cared the special line about it is also good for children who have different abilities. Nobody cared. And they give it to their 3 years old because it is very useful to teach 3 years old or 4 years old to learn all those advanced skills. And once we build a brand in the market, as very effective tool that is very unique and distinguish ourselves from other products, nobody cared. In early days, that's why I had such a hard time for pitching our idea to the venture capitalists. When they just heard something called special needs or disability or something, they automatically just respond, it's a niche market. It's a small market. Why you try to do such a thing with brilliant skill like yours? And they said that nobody will touch it because it associates with a stigma. But when our product hit number one in the chart in Chinese market for 8 straight weeks. SoftBank Ventures Asia and the largest Chinese education company just approached us, and so they just decided to provide Series A fund. So when I have an IR, I just started with all those three. Okay, I and my husband was game developer, and my son was born with special needs, and that's why we say. Usually, when I pitched it to the VCs in Series A before Series A stage, in seed stage, they really bothered to just for this short 3 sentences in the first page of our presentation. But because we already proved in the market, they say, okay, next page. Didn't bother or didn't argue with us because it already looked like a secret sauce of our success. And they just didn't argue because we already proved that we can create 1 million download in 1 year of time and hit the market with number one and maintain it for 8 straight weeks. So, so far, we are more vocal about what we are doing in Korea, but try to separate our company message to our product message. So our series, our Todo series that is super popular in the market, people know it is from Enuma, but we don't say all those express thing or struggling learner or special needs associate with that brand message. But when we have a chance to discuss about our company, we just try to be really authentic to our mission and why we are doing it.
One last question.
Thank you again for the talk. It sounds like so far there are a lot of instances where sticking with the mission, sticking with your vision really paid off in the long run. I'm curious if there were also moments where you had to give up on something or maybe had to pivot in a big way, and how you recognize that at that time it was time to pivot or give something up and not just say, I need to try harder, I need to dig deeper and put my back into it.
It's a good question, but very difficult one. So we have 2 different strategies. One is, so the theory of change of our company is like that. This type of early education self-learning tool require large volume of contents, and it should be the best quality in the market to get children's attention and to create real learning game. It's super expensive, and we continuously should invest in it. So we build our B2C market and earn a healthy sales from that market and invest it continuously to improve our software. But our software code is modularized and very universal, so we can create some specific software for Indonesian learners or Malaysian learners or learners in certain very specific refugee camp in very effective way. So running that commercial engine, yes, we are doing well. We made some of the small pivot on marketing strategy or product strategy, but it is very straightforward. All of our small failure all happened when we are doing the impact work. We call it impact work to try to deliver it to the children who need the most. There are multiple barriers. There is no market. Even though there is a funding, those fundings are usually very temporary. And even though we could effectively deliver the product and software to the environment, there is other challenges like pandemic or monsoon. The site with 2,000 tablets during the pandemic was almost washed away for a really large typhoon in the last month of the program. So those things continuously happens. So it's really hard to make it as a sustainable business. But we believe that one day, we will make sure that government realize that they should invest earlier than the first grade to neutralize those children to be ready to learn first grade skills, or should provide independent learning support in first or second year of school for them to be ready, for them to be proficient in basic reading, writing, and math skills to learn third grade skills. If children fail before second grade, there is nothing you can teach after the third grade. But in reality, 70% of children, 70% of children in developing countries fail to meet that level, right? So I still hope that we can convince, we can demonstrate why digital tool can be a really good supplement or good addition on current education system, and why they should spend some of the money they use to purchasing paper textbooks to purchasing digital tools. Not easy, and we believe that it will still take several more years. And we pivoted a lot, and sometimes I also obsess to very, very small project that will not provide any meaningful return on investment. Like we have a very beautiful English learning tool for Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh. Somebody just asked to make it, and they made an initial fund. Okay, we spend initial tool using that initial fund because there is 1 million Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh, and they need to learn basic reading or writing, but there is no writing method in Rohingya language. So they decide to teach English, but there is nobody who can speak in English among these 1 million people. Okay, I can help. But companies are not running based on the spirit of I can help. Yeah, we can help, but it doesn't give the healthy revenue stream and on the effort and the technology we pour to the project. So we are still learning, and the world is changing so fast. The situation is very different before the pandemic broke, and during the pandemic, things were also very, very different. And after the pandemic, we realized that we hoped that there is more investment to cover children's learning loss in most of countries. But in reality, most of developing countries are struggling for inflation and the price of basic goods and all those fluctuating the currency rate and so on. So most countries actually reduce their education budget. There is no budget in their hands to do new experiment or to purchase some of new technology because they are struggling for more important things. They are eating the seed and they don't have any resources to invest for the future. Right? So working in this unstable environment and very fastly changing world give us many challenges. And we don't know the answer. We just continuously do the experiment and pivot, doing the experiment to pivot, experiment in Indonesia, and just continuously pivoting the model to get our goal. And in Indonesia project will be fine because we find a stable 5 years in funding for the project. But we are also experimenting for other language versions and other situations. And we will just keep experimenting until we find the solution. But this solution is not from our smart strategy, but from the external environment of one politician's decision or the one country's situation, or one very brave NGO who actually demonstrated to their policy level. We don't know, but we pray and just work, keep experimenting until we will meet that critical moment that we can demonstrate the needs of our product to the world.
On that note, it's been truly inspirational to hear from you tonight, and thank you so much for joining us and sharing your stories. For those of you who may be interested, the recorded version of this program will be released later this week on September 1st at 6 p.m., and we hope you'll join us again for a future program here at the Korea Society. So thank you so much.
There is one thing I wanted to
yes,
add.
yes, absolutely.
So we have Korean literacy system called Todo Hangul, and we just start field test in small Korean school in Auckland from this week. So if there is a people who are interested, so Todo Math is popular. I believe some of you, the audiences, already know about the tool. But we also have a Korean literacy system.
She was telling me about this for my kid.
Yeah. So if you have a child who can speak Korean but need to learn some of the basic reading and writing, I believe that can be a good tool.
Sounds fabulous. Yep. Thank you. Thank you so much,
everyone. Thank you very much.